Okay, hi, and we're in. So I was listening to something the other day and it stimulated a whole conversation. So this is where we're going today is all about like a lot of it's really about faddism, to be honest. And it's really about like in this world where we have a tendency to pervert everything that's new and interesting and useful. We have a tendency to pervert it with like flooding the market with faddism, with ego, with there's so much stuff that goes on. Excuse me, I've been cuddling the cat and I've got cat hairs all over my face. But it was an interesting one because someone put up a post in Conscious Wellington um, about whether the new age had failed. And I was like, we're a little bit early on in the new age, don't you think? Like, so essentially the new age, let's say it started in the 60s. Oh, hi everyone, Erin's in Warrior. I know it's been a while. Quite honestly, I've just been allowing the cosmos to do its thing and my body to regenerate and resettle and come out in a different place. And so pretty sure I'm back now. And so, yeah, let's get going, which is a great time to start right at the end of the year and going into what is going to be quite an intense next year. Astrology all aligning. It's looking like a world full of opportunity and challenge. Both. Same thing, kind of. My teacher described it as crises. I was like, oh, but that's in a layers of crises in the if you consider the words origin isn't just about disaster, it's more about challenge and opportunity, and challenge. But getting back to the topic, don't forget to like and subscribe, by the way. We like you to give us some feedback, make some comments. Those of you that watch, remember that everybody's putting out energy in this world, whether you agree with it or not. And it's always good to put something back as well, because it gives us something to play with. It lets us know someone's out there. And it makes us feel like we're actually at least producing something that is being received. And it's always good to be received. So this sort of question was pitched. Do we think the new age has failed? And I was like, so if we started the new age in the 60s and it's 2022, we're essentially 62 years into the new age. And the new age is or the age of Aquarius that we're in is 2000 years. Like every bridge, every age essentially is a 2000-year chunk of the world and the humanity cycle. I was like, it's a little bit early. But also we have coming up 2025 and 2027. So irrespective of whether you talk to those out there in the woo-woo world or you talk to those out there in what I would call the older tradition. So you've got the new age spiritual world, just as valuable as the very old version, which comes more through 5,000-year-old traditions of Chinese, Indian, Hindu, Arabic, all of that stuff. They're all talking about it too. And then you've got the gurus that I would say are more new age gurus like Sadhguru, who whilst he's a Hindu guru, he's very much a rebel in his own time. He doesn't sit on a stage and speak like the Dalai Lama does. Actually, he gets down and works with the people, which is at huge cost to his own energy, I might add. And so he's what we call more of a modern version of guru. And you see his type of guru echoed in the likes of Joe Dispenza, Gangaji, all these types, right? Osho, my own guru, who was very like that. Like, we lived and breathed and did the work, and it's hard work being around a being like that as well, because they're constantly trying to lift your energy up so you stop pulling them down, essentially. And to do that, it's a big flush of karma at once. So having had that experience, I feel I might have something to add to this conversation about the new age and whether it's failed or not. the fact that we're coming up to 2025 and you can feel the quickening of that is hugely contributory to the fact that we have all these people out there that are jumping in as spiritual guides who, quite frankly, many of them only have a regurgitation of someone else's system to offer and their own energy, which it shouldn't be minimized, but it might not have the self-development that is required to be a great guide, you know. And then we've got 2027. So the importance of 2025 is there's a peaking of the solar flares hitting the planet. Now, this is something actually Sadhguru talked about quite clearly, was that at this time, at this quickening where we're leading towards this elevation of solar flares, and there's more and more hitting the planet all the time, and it is part of why you can feel that the world that we had, it's gone and something else is coming. And I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know in your being, right? It's beyond logic. It's known. It doesn't need necessarily evidence, but there's actually plenty of evidence there too. So as we look into this, as we look towards this 2025, the meditation, the work, the shadow work, the light work, all of that stuff is going to be more and more and more beneficial. And I can pretty much, the one thing I can tell you that you should be doing right now is self-work, and you should be doing meditation. You should be doing that work on some level. Transcendental dance and sit. Yoga and sit. Catharsis and sit. What's the one I was thinking of? Hypnosis, therapeutic hypnosis and sit. Channeling, all of it. Get involved in it. Get massage, get body work done. And remember that being a spiritual being on this planet means being a human being, and you are attached to this body. So your spiritual enlightenment is very much connected to how you're dealing with your body. I myself personally have just come into this time where I'm like, I need a more thorough detox plan to deal with how my medically intuitive system is taking on people's energy, intuiting from it and churning it out all the time, because it's a lot for my system and it seems to get clogged and bogged all the time with that process that I'm going through, trying to help and work with others. So consider those things for yourself too, because they're relevant to everyone. They're not just relevant to me, right? And also, as you're trying to get work done by people like myself or others, you actually want to be doing the work, right? Because it's going to have more effect if you're actually involved in it. You cannot pay someone to do your enlightenment work for you. You can pay guides to help you along the way, but you're still going to have to do it. And so I was quite intrigued by this question, and Cara Leah and I got into a bit of a conversation on Conscious Wellington, just a brief one. And then she said, look, go check out my my podcast that I did with the Dark Wizard. Now, don't get me started on someone calling themselves the Dark Wizard. And given that I've called myself the Zen Warrior, I probably shouldn't cast stones there, but did make me chuckle. And then there's a whole area that I'm quite unfamiliar with where he starts talking about magic. And there's so many things that come up for me there, and I really probably need to go down a bit more of a hole on what they mean by magic. Though I did do a little bit of checking with someone who is a trusted friend of mine who's in this realm, who, when I checked in with him, he didn't give it great reviews, let's put it that way. So, but going back to the question, and going back to the statement that was actually made, which was, there's a bunch of people out there who are all jumping on the spiritual marketplace, who've gone and done a course 3 months ago, and now they're all guides and channelers, and they're all in the spiritual marketplace teaching Tantra, teaching this, teaching that, teaching blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm almost a 42-year-old woman who has spent the last 22 years embedded deeply in my own spiritual development. A good 9 years of that was spent with a guru who had been with many, who'd learned from many different gurus, but had also been enlightened under Osho. And around a sangha and in what was essentially a pressure cooker for enlightenment. It's not an easy process, I might add. It's a big challenge. And when you're in that environment, as a lot of people who work with Sadhguru will know, because I know it's a similar environment that he has, there is a lot of work being done. Like, you are pushed to work and work and work. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of karmic cleansing and karmic processing that goes on through that work. So it's no walk in the park. We're not all sitting around, eating fruit and dancing, and that's it. So to see what is going on, I have to say I 100% agreed with the assessment. Well, I 90% agreed with the assessment from the Dark Wizard, which was, sorry, that sounds really judgmental, and it totally was. And it was that there's a bunch of people out there who are basically spiritual white belts who are masquerading as spiritual black belts, and they are only white belts. And I've observed this a lot hanging out with some of the people that I do and going to different events. And I've seen people come in who are channels, who are this, who are that. And I've observed them, and they're incapable of holding the energy. They're messy with it. They're all over the place. And they're stuck in their crutch. Their energy's not circulating up to their crown chakra. And I'm like, and they're 25. And not that age should matter, but to some extent it does. To some extent. There are exceptions. Osho was enlightened at 20 years old. That's an exceptionally different circumstance. But there aren't 500 25-year-olds out there that got enlightened and jumped on the spiritual bandwagon. Unfortunately, I wish that was the case, but unfortunately it's not fucking true. So there's a great danger here with spiritual ego, right? Oh, I'm a channel, I'm this, I'm that, I'm wonderful, I'm perfect. Now I don't need to reflect and do the work. However, that's not always the case. Just because someone is 25, they're not aware that they need to do the work. Some are doing great work. Some are really clear. Some have a lot to offer. And so it becomes, how do you ascertain whether the person that's sitting in front of you is useful to you or not? And this is where I think human design comes in as being a really interesting guide that you can enhance in your own body. And this is why I'm reading these charts, which, by the way, more than welcome to inquire. And one of the reasons I'm reading these charts is because I see it as a way to deprogram the individual and to bring us into our own authority. And when I say authority, those of you who read human design or who understand human design to some extent will understand that what that means is each of us have a different one of our centers working as our authority. For some, it will be a self-authority. For me, it's an emotional authority. For some, it's a gut authority. For some, it is splenic, etc., etc. And so when we have this, when we understand what our authority is, and we start working to make decisions from our authority, we can then start, whether it's splenic and intuitive, whether it's gut and a gut response, whether it's emotional, whatever it is, we can start exercising how to use that authority. For me, it's I must feel what is right for me in life, right? Because it's an emotional authority, so it's about feelings. So when I'm using that authority and I practice using that authority, it is going to be easier for me to ascertain whether the person, irrespective of whether logic tells me they're a white belt or not, that actually doesn't really matter. There is something beyond knowledge on an intellectual level that's at play when it comes to looking for a guide. And that is, I'm looking for an energetic development through someone who may actually have something beyond just what they learned. For example, I have something beyond what I learned. So I'm a projector 1-3 with an emotional authority. Those of you that know what the 1-3 is, It's about, the one is really about gathering knowledge on an intellectual level, but the three is about experiencing it. And so I foundationally learn in both aspects through going through a lot of shit and through reading the book and through going to the lesson and through, all of that sort of stuff. So, and what I've come to realize is that I can logically explain to you why a certain diet or a certain practice or and I look for that information. I can logically explain that to you. And I'm so foundational that I even look for that so that I can justify what I'm saying and why it's going to work for you. But there's something beyond that goes on in my system. I have this medical intuitive gift, right? And it's there for me whether I like it or not. And I've been using it for years, whether I've fully acknowledged it or not. And those that have worked with me will tell you that I will just know things. And it's actually beyond me. It's part of how my whole system works. And so when I come across someone that I'm going to work with, there's no logic, to be honest, that goes into determining whether that person is right for me or not. It is totally a feeling. It is me running my authority and going, yeah, I feel something there. I don't know what it is I feel, but I feel something I want to check out. Now, you should remember with me, I'm the 1 and the 3, right? So I like to investigate, and I'm sometimes willing to investigate at cost to myself whether it works or not. The other thing is I'm the 3, so I'm the experiential learner. So I am bound to make mistakes. But through that, I gather information. I learn more and more. And it feeds into this whole system that then can feel even better through things. And so I see the whole process as developing my feeling to feel into stuff. So do I care if someone's a white belt? No, I care if I get the results that I'm looking for. And I care if I get a result I wasn't looking for. And that could be a good one or a bad one. I once sat in a lecture by Drukshin. I think I may have talked about this before. And he talked about false gurus. And what he said was this, and I thought it was so important, and it's so important for you on your spiritual journey to understand this, that if a guru is a true guru or a false guru, but a person gets guided in the right direction and they end up in the right place, and it develops them and it brings them positive things and it helps in their evolution. Does it matter if the guru was a false guru or a real guru? Is that even relevant? Do you give a flying fuck if your guru is the real deal or not? Is your self journey not about exactly that, yourself? And so in that, there's something else to be learned there. And I remember going to I remember being sent to a lunch to meet this guru, and at this lunch, and I was quite surprised that I was sent, and it was maybe 5 of us that were sent. I was quite surprised that my guru wasn't there. Very rare that you get let loose to hang out with the gurus on your own without the guru overseeing, to make sure that you're not disrespecting the energy, right? Because essentially we're all a bit spiritually stupid at times, and we can all be disrespectful very unconsciously because we've got a lot of stuff going on. 60% of us is unconscious programs we don't need. So he sent me along, and I went with a few other friends of mine. We sat and we had lunch, and I watched, and I sat back, and I listened to this Buddhist monk go on for quite a while, and he's a lama, which is a high level enlightened being, supposedly. And he's all talking about what he's achieved and how great he is and how wonderful he is and what he's doing. He talked about himself the whole time. And I felt really in an interesting space, because I was really like, I think this guy's full of shit. but I didn't want to say that. I just sort of sat back and I just observed, and I watched my thoughts, and I had a nice lunch. I was at one of my favorite restaurants in Kentish Town in London. And that evening, I was in our ashram house, and I'm in the kitchen. I think I was playing sous chef, so I was just chopping stuff. And my guru turns up, and he's chatting away and he's making his dish and blah, blah, blah. And he's sort of, moving quite energetically around the kitchen, which was a large kitchen because we would entertain a lot of people. So we're in a very large house. And there's a point where he turns and he sort of spins around and goes, "Oh, what happened with that guy? Blah, blah, blah. What was he like?" And I paused, and clearly the pause spoke volumes because he looked sideways at me, straight through me, and he went, "Oh, full of shit, huh?" And he was like, and then he just went, "Yeah, I thought so." So the reason he wasn't there was because he wasn't going to waste his time, first of all, and he already knew that intuitively. But also worth noting that the reason that, because I went with someone who was a little bit more senior to me in the crew, she'd been around maybe 10 years longer. The reason we were all sent was also to allow us to observe whether something was real or false. Like a huge part of what we did there was developing vision. Opening your third eye is about opening your vision to see clearly and to see through bullshit. So when you're selecting off your spiritual marketplace, yes, I think there are a lot of white belts out there that I wouldn't bother with. I think that's true. But just because they're a white belt doesn't mean I wouldn't bother with them. That there are gifts that go beyond someone's knowledge. And if you feel your way or intuit your way or gut respond your way, or if you use your authority to find your way through that, I think that's hugely valuable. The other thing that I think is worth noting in this question of, do we think that the new age has failed, is that actually what is going to happen when anything comes very much into the foreground, as the spiritual awakening energy arises going towards 2025 and then through on towards 2027, 28, which again is well talked about. It's worth checking out, by the way. As that energy comes up and up and up, of course you're going to see more and more people jumping on the bandwagon of the spiritual marketplace. And this is natural. One, we saw this with yoga. We saw this with mindfulness. And mindfulness has its place, but I just hate the word. I hate the fact that it's sort of almost counter to what really is going on there. We saw this with keto, paleo. Like, there's this way that human beings latch into their answer. They're always looking for the intellectual, logical solution to their problem. And they get a taste for something that works. They get a taste of truth. And Christianity, Catholicism, there's a taste of truth in there. And everybody jumps on the bandwagon, blindly somewhat, right? But this is a natural thing that is going to occur as the new age starts to go through the process of potentially being successful, is that you're going to see a lot of bullshit as well. And you're going to see a lot of stuff that's new and fresh, and people who are green stepping into that place, who are going to be super valuable, or who may even be in the space that they're in already. So this concept of whether the new age has failed or not, I'm like, I think it's a pretty early discussion to be having. It might also be a little bit arrogant. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh there. I'm a greater spiritual being because I'm 42 and I've been in it for 20 years than someone who's a 20-year-old could be enlightened. Who am I to judge? but I still think that there is value in acknowledging the fact that there are a lot of people out there that I wouldn't buy anything from. And I'm forever a seeker, forever a student. I will always be a student. As an enlightened master, I guarantee you I will be a student, running my experiments and checking out what is going on. And that's just a natural part of how I work. I will always be investigating, learning. That is my design. So yeah, that's pretty much my response to all of that. Fadism and perversion in the spiritual realm, in the spiritual marketplace, is unfortunately a natural part of how this whole system works. It is also somewhat in balance, that where you see something of great value, you will see something that's not. that is how things work until we as individuals and as a collective really find our way to our own balance. As long as we are out of balance, then there's going to be a natural like extremism to everything, because we lack that centeredness. And the more centered we become as individuals, the more centered we become as a collective, the more our individual energy demands that the individual energies around us rise up, and the more centered the whole collective becomes. So the other thing that I would probably say is to sit in judgment of whether something has failed or not is again out of balance. It's to not see that there isn't a pass or fail. And it's also to buy into this concept that we're here to try and succeed or gain or achieve anything. And you're not. You're here to be as you are. And that might be a learning, changing, organic being. But the person you are right now, as each second ticks over, dropping into that, that's not about going anywhere. That's not about getting rich. That's not about anything like that. When people talk about abundance, a lot of us relate to it on how much stuff do you have and how are you perceived by society. Abundance is about being in the abundant moment. Everything else flocks to that. So that has actually nothing to do with stuff. Stuff just happens to gravitate around people who are abundantly in the moment. Anyway, that's me signing out. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please send me questions and stuff like that. I actually have a few questions that I do need to answer. I will come to that. This conversation was spurred off of something else, another conversation that I was having with a friend. And her and I went down another rabbit hole, and I want to go more into that. It'll be another video off the back of this, somewhat connected, somewhat not connected, with regards more to how we drop into too much into the rules of how all of this works. Because in essence, there are no rules. And I guess that's also the other thing that I wanted to reflect on here with all of this, is that this concept of becoming a spiritual master from white belt through black belt, it has some relevance. Absolutely it does. Of course it does. But actually, how do you, as a fucked up human being, unenlightened master, determine what that is? And so that's where I bring that mastery back, that there are no rules and there is no one way for you that's going to work for me. If you're a splenic being, a splenic projector, for example, you're an intuitive and you go on intuition. That doesn't work for me. I go on a feeling, and then there are a lot of other things that come into that as well when we get deeper into the charts that talk to us about our shadows within those charts and within the I Ching. So yeah, there are no rules, there really aren't. And you're here I mean, a 3 will say this, right? You're here for the experience. Every experience is valuable, whether you hate it or not. Have a great day. Like and subscribe. Drop me some questions. I think I went slightly off the path I was going, but I'm going to follow that up with part 2, probably tomorrow or on the weekend. Bye.